Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Slant 3D podcast, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today, we're going to be talking about Tangled getting opened back up again, third-party parts inside of Teleport, Thingiverse doing stuff with AI, and then finishing off on how you decide which new features to use in a product, or in this case, how we decide what new features to put inside of a product. But before that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. This episode is brought to you by Teleport. Are you tired of running your own print farm, having to change out nozzles day and night, having to run out into the dead of winter and deliver packages to the post office in order to deliver your goods to your customers? Well, worry no more. Teleport is available. You can upload your products directly to Teleport and connect it into your Etsy store, Amazon store, eBay store, or TikTok shop. Whenever you receive an order, the order will be magically transmitted to Slant 3D, and we will print your item, pack it up gentle as can be, and ship it directly to your customer for you. So no longer do you need to worry about running your own print farm, no matter where you may be. Just upload a model, and then we will print and ship every item directly to your customer for you. And it's like having 100 3D printers right on tap. Whether you're selling one item a month or 1,000 items per day, Teleport has your back. So check out Teleport over at slantpod.com. That's slantpod.com. I'm getting better at the ad read. All right, so moving into 3D printing news. Not a lot this week, guys, but the main piece of news is Thingiverse has added an AI label and filter to its repo. The update involves both creators and regular users. Creators now have the option to label their models as AI generated. Users can toggle a filter to show which models are made from AI or not. There's also a report functionality should users suspect an uploaded model features AI-generated elements, but is not labeled as such. The move follows an uptick of AI content on the Thingiverse platform and cites concerns about the quality of AI-generated models. This contrasts with many other model repos, which provide AI-powered tools to help the user create 3D models from text prompts and images. It's unclear whether the concerns mentioned are meant generally or specific to Thingiverse and a result of user complaints. We've reached out for comments from Multimaker. This is from 3dprinting.com. So models on AI. Side note, by the way, it's cold in here. Bundling up is what it is. But as far as the AI templating and that kind of thing, the labeling, yeah, great. This is going to last for like 2 more weeks before it's just kind of inundated. Because whether you want AI generated or not, and yes, AI generated content has generated a lot of schlock inside of photos and general internet content. For the most part, a lot of it doesn't get a lot of play. So like even AI generated pictures and that kind of thing have their place and people use them in certain contexts, but whenever somebody just kind of pukes them out into the world, they kind of just get disappeared into the ocean of the internet and will be used to train the next version of ChatGPT or whatever. But the user-generated content generally floats to the top because the extra spice that human engagement with the design of a photo or a piece of text levels it up so much. What I always say to people with AI is if you're average at your job, you're probably going to get replaced because an AI right now is kind of an average level blog writer or whatever it happens to be. But if you're good at your job, you just got 10 times better because you're now able to guide the AI in a direction that is original and you have taste. This applies to 3D models as well. If you are a modeler and you have taste, then you can use AI to get rid of a lot of the grunt work of creating the model, and then you can finish it up. So like if you want to create a dragon, you have AI create the base form of a dragon, and then you go in and you sculpt in the scales and put in the extra details, but you didn't have to spend an hour sculpting out the primitive of it. So anybody who wants to export the primitive can, but it's going to disappear into the ocean of low effort crap. But if you are a modeler who wants to use AI as a tool, having to label it as AI is a little bit unfair because that's unfair to the artist who is now using the tool. And it's also irrelevant because the AI is going to continue to get on better here. You've got like 18 more months before AI generated 3D models are as good as just about anything else. Literally, we predicted that it would take about 3 to 5 years for AI 3D model generators to get up, and this was about year and a half, 2 years ago. And we're on track. So yeah, the 3D models, doing the labeling is silly. It's also unfair because when you have community reported labeling of AI models, you're probably going to cause more consternation than you would expect, because beginning 3D modelers are going to get flagged for having bad models, or competing model makers will flag you. Fortunately, and I don't mean to cast shade, Thingiverse isn't one of the primary platforms anymore, so it doesn't really matter. So anyhow, but it is interesting that this is like the first real reaction to it. The other platforms have really embraced generation of 3D models. MakerWorld most certainly has, but in a very controlled sort of way. Things kind of has always messed with it and hoped for it, all those kind of things. So that. As far as the, but yeah, comment down below what you think around the moderation of AI generated 3D models will be and how it should be. Quite frankly, Joel, 3D printing nerd, did a video around stolen 3D models here recently and kind of the frustration around that. And I'm with him because there is no monitoring or actual real copyright infrastructure around 3D models inside the community, because the community started out as open source, which is bad because there's no actual enforcement of anything. And then now you have AI models inundating everything, which is bad. And but you also have no way of ever policing it. Since there's no agencies, no platforms, no tracking at all, 3D models are just in a really weird spot to where there's like an entire restructuring that has to be done in order to protect 3D model creators. And that's not there yet. So like when the internet came along, the music industry already had robust lawyers and enforcement logistics in order to protect songs to make sure they just weren't stolen and shared around on Napster or whatever. And however you feel around internet information sharing, being able to take somebody's work and then just share it around 100 times without them earning a living from it is wrong. So, and in 3D modeling, that's effectively what we have, where 3D modelers have to continue to create new stuff and just be on a treadmill, because as soon as they share the files are gone and in the wind. But the only way to get around this is to either lock off the files or something else. My personal philosophy on this is I think that the manufacturing will serve as that barrier. So like inside of our teleport app and that kind of thing, if we introduced 3D models that designers could upload, those models would only exist inside of Teleport, and sellers could access prints of those models through Teleport. And then the designers would get a royalty off of all the prints of the model, and the models would never actually be shared around. None of the sellers would actually have the 3D file. They just have access to sell the prints via Teleport. So that is a way of protecting it, but it's basically not sharing the files. It's just integrating into a manufacturing system. But I would also have the opinion that most of these models don't have value until they're actually manufactured. Side note, and this is a contentious thing, a 3D printer company could restrict certain models to only their machines, and when you download the model from their platform, you buy that model and the designer gets it, and you pay 10 cents to the designer because you have a subscription to the machine, which gives you access to all the files on the network, which then are that fund is redistributed to the network. I'm being slightly tongue-in-cheek about this, but there are 3D printer manufacturers that could do this, and many people think that they're going to. But an online platform integrated with a local machine, and that local machine has a subscription to the online platform provides you with files, and the designers on the platform earn money from that subscription, the same way a YouTuber earns money from YouTube subscribers. So, anyhow, the 3D model problem is a big one and only getting worse and going to continue to get worse, and like a lot worse, because historically 3D models haven't really had any value because 10 guys with a 3D printer cared about it. But now with 3D print farms and Etsy sellers and all the rest of it, like models are getting more valuable. Okay, that's all for the news, guys. I gave that story like 10 minutes. I'm happy for myself. So we stretched it out. But there's no other news this week. Checked it all. No other news. If anybody has any news, comment down below. There's no drama. Nobody's getting bought. No stocks are being sold. No lawyers are suing anybody. Nothing's going on. So, company updates. Teleport. Over on the Slant Pod channel, we just released a couple of videos around white and matte black because I wanted to clarify things about that. And we also did a video fully laying out all the third-party parts currently on Teleport in the premium tier, which is from the light puck to the charge-in puck, so on and so forth, all of those. Yeah, so there's detailed dimensions and everything else with those. We'll be doing a file drop. Maybe we'll have done the file drop already of negatives for all those pieces here as well, too. Check the blog on slantpod.com. That's where most of that stuff gets dropped. Let's see here. With Teleport, no other big updates there. Like I say, kind of on the software side, we're going through and doing revamps and stuff here, taking a breather, pruning and cropping and that kind of stuff on the back end. And then let's see here. I don't think there's any other major updates with Teleport. Shipping times are about where they are. Again, I keep on saying we're getting it down lower. We're deploying more capacity, and it keeps on getting taken up. Then let's see here. Tangled is all caught up. Tangled is all caught up. We're running the next run here for February, which will get us ahead. So all subscribers should have their orders shipping out. Here at the beginning of February, your orders might have taken up to 5 business days. As of this, by the time you've seen this podcast, pretty much all members' orders should be shipping in 1 to 2 days, if not same day. Because we're getting ahead now in inventory. We got through the big old wave of people there and produced to get caught back up. And now we've got stuff on the shelf. We'll keep stuff on the shelf and we'll be producing out in front of y'all. I had mentioned that we'd done a material deal that will help with all of this stuff. I'm not sure how much of it's going to trickle down, but we're working on some material tricks to help improve stuff. And maybe, I don't know. Go check out Tangled. We hit $10. If you remember, you can get it for $10. And we'll be expanding membership benefits too here this year. So the thing with the members is the members will start getting access to like drops of excess material from like the Slant farm. So like glut material will end up going into members only. So like specialty colors that we have left over from production jobs and that kind of thing. And then let's see, that's pretty much it. Tangled. Yeah, pretty much caught up on all that stuff. We're rearranging our whole production line around Tangled and that kind of production lines around Tangled right now. So yeah, once we do this batch, we're tearing down a whole half of the building and moving things around. And hopefully they go back together again and work fine. But we shall see. It's exciting times. Okay, let's see here. No other real product updates on that. Do check out the Slant Pod channel. Updates overside there. Teleport, Tangled. Yeah, nothing else. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to all you folks, I guess. We thought about doing a video for it, but then we thought, nah, our audience isn't going to watch that. So we scrapped that idea. Okay. On board. This is going to be a fast podcast this week. That's okay. The last one was an hour and 20 minutes. And yeah, so that's fine. Okay. How to decide new features to release on a product. In this context, it is justification for us around Teleport because we have a lot of developers. We have a lot of developers. We have a lot of suggestions from outside of the organization of what we should be doing with Teleport. There are constant suggestions coming in from everyone all the time. And we appreciate that, and we do listen to all of them. By the way, guys, I do want to make the note that we do monitor every single platform. We can't respond to all of them because it takes 5 seconds to read a message, and it takes 5 minutes to write a reply to be reasonable and decent and that kind of stuff. We can't just respond with yep all the time because that's just unfair. That's just being a jerk. And And the only response that like works okay without offending people is like thumbs up, and that doesn't happen inside of email. But we do listen and view everything, even comments on YouTube. Like we read everything. Every message book, everything else. We don't always do it topically because sometimes we will do reviews of particular inboxes at the end of a week or something like that. Ones that are critical around like bug fixes and that kind of stuff. Of course, we monitor on the regular, but we do read everything. It very rarely, let me back this up. When building a product, your customers should not know more about your product than you do. And by that I mean their suggestions for solutions shouldn't automatically always be the best idea. Some people make this mistake. Some people think that since a customer suggested it, it should be implemented. That's not entirely true. I'm going to use, I was talking about this with one of our guys the other day, and we brought up Bill Hader. Bill Hader was a cast member of SNL, created the TV show Barry, a very, very good comedy writer and a surprisingly good cinematic director. Anyway, he was talking about writing a script, documentary now, he did those too, but he was talking about writing scripts, and he said, I write the script and I'll give it off to people to read, and people will tell me that there's a problem right here and they'll make a suggestion of how to fix it. I find, this is Bill Hader saying, I find that whenever they feel something off, there's something wrong there. And that's where I stop listening, because their suggestions are never good and should not be taken into account because it is their perception of it rather than your creative vision for it. That is so true, because if you take everyone's suggestion and say, Joe suggested this for this piece and Jerry suggested this for this piece and he created this for this piece, you end up with a design by committee, but worse, it's a design by crowd. So you take the feedback. If people say, I'm having trouble right here, why don't you guys put a big red button right there? You just say, they're having trouble right here. Now, in the context of the entire app and what we have to do as a company, what do we now implement here? Also, by the way, we are being paid to create a product. We should know that product really well and know the means by which to create it better than anybody else. This is what I mean by like the customer should not know your product better than you. If somebody in the YouTube comments makes a suggestion about our print farm and we had never considered it before, and that person consistently and always has a better idea about how to run a print farm, why the hell are we running a print farm? That's like really the question of it. You listen to it, but you should have so much information, so much insight, and so much experience that you are a better judge of the final implementation of the product. So you listen for the signal that there is friction there, because the customer knows that better than you, because they use it probably very often than most developers use their products. By the way, this is also why you should use your own products and build for yourself, because you're your customer. But if you are removed from the customer and the customer reports an issue, you observe that issue, and then you make a decision about what should be done to create that solution. And the customer suggestion can be right, but it shouldn't always be right, because that means they know more about how to build your product than you do. And that's incorrect, because you're being paid to do a job. That went off on a rant of longer than I thought it was, but when looking for new features, you look at customer feedback as to problem areas. Then you meet with your team and say, how do we best create a solution to this reported problem? You can take the suggested solution and put it on the board, but it doesn't have to be the default. This is what many people misunderstand. A customer asks for something and they give the customer exactly what the customer asked for. That's okay. That doesn't work long term, because you might make that customer happy, maybe, but probably not. And you can generally make that customer happier by saying yes and this, that, and the other thing. So, a very prominent example for us. colors. We constantly get asked to add additional colors, additional materials, everything to Teleport. Right now, Teleport has 9 base PLA colors and 1 PETG color. The reason we don't have more is, even though we get lots of customer feedback of like, I want purple and I want chartreuse and I want tricolor and so on and so forth, and this is cool, and why aren't you doing this? Couple of reasons. Number one, roadmap. There's a limit to how much we can introduce, because if we introduce too many features at once, it will cause low-grade suck in all of the features. We would rather have a few colors shipping quickly than a bunch of colors but shipping slow. How about that? And the more colors we have, the more machines need to be dedicated to those colors. Because whenever we introduce a new material color, we have to reserve a certain amount of machinery to that color and potentially more. So you maintain the scope of it all. There's 2 reasons. Colors, 2 reasons. Now I forgot the second reason. You dilute it, and then you need to make sure that that feature is actually used. So one person reporting the error is not necessarily a problem. That could be anything from, oh, that person's confused, that person's never been on a computer before, that person has never done 3D printing, that person wandered in here and thought we were a radio show, or something like that. You have to have actual data in order to justify a new feature. And that data means multiple people asked for it, or you can see that your users want more of it. So for example, inside of some of our apps, we are able to, we get requests from customers of what they're selling, and they'll give us reports on number of items sold of a certain category. Like when they're signing up for Teleport, if we do an onboarding, some folks will reach out and say, I need some custom support here. I'm selling 200 pieces a day of this, and you don't have chartreuse. Can you turn on chartreuse? Well, in that case, we know that A, we can introduce the feature, it will help a customer, and it has enough use to be worth it. Materials that don't get enough use, we ixnay. For example, right now I can tell you orange is used preciously little on Teleport, to such a degree that we're really considering just shutting it down, because orange is just not a useful color. Nobody wants it. We introduced it as one of the primary colors because that made sense, but it's not used by anybody. No one is purchasing products made in orange. So we shouldn't have introduced orange, and we should probably eliminate it now because it's decision fatigue. But anyhow, yes, make sure that the feature is actually going to be used, which means collecting data. Multiple ways to collect data. Customer feedback. General analysis of what's going on inside of the app. It is a software product. We're able to collect data about what is selling and what isn't. Oh, that person sold 500 of those things. Oh, they sold that much of this. So we use that data in order to run it. When you get to a certain size, you can run tests. A test, if you're just running an Etsy store or a feature, is just listing another version of the product with different colors. I'm going to stay in colors because color is the simple feature that everybody leans on. But introduce another version of the product in a different color, see if that increases sales. What we can do is, since we have a large number of users on Teleport, we can introduce the new color to a few select users and see if they bite on it, and send them a notification, say hey, chartreuse is available now. Go ahead and list it on your products, and see if people go through and list it on their products. That's an easy way to do a lightweight test. So ultimately, don't introduce a feature until you know people actually want it. Based on customer feedback, good data collection, good testing. Okay. What people hate and what people like are different things. People will do more of what they like. What people hate is something else. People hate all kinds of things. People hate my face on these videos once in a while. It's okay. If people are using a feature, adding an additional not adding an additional feature, Adding a strengthening feature is a good thing to do. A strengthening feature is one that makes that current experience better. By the way, a deepening feature is not an additional feature. An additional feature is saying buy now and buy later and having two buttons next to each other. A deepening feature is making the buy now button one click or eliminating the credit card info friction inside of the buy now button. Those are two different features. One deepening feature makes the primary feature better, makes that experience better. The additional feature dilutes the experience and gives more options, more decision fatigue, makes the customer worse. So an example of this is like more colors. If Teleport just had black and white, it would be very clear what we did and everybody would know where they stand. They know what color black was, they know what white was, all the rest of it. If we introduce orange, now they have to decide, should my product be made in orange, should my project be made in white, or should it be made in black? We've introduced extra work for the customer. Now, is that worth it? Does it increase the customer sales enough to justify the extra work? Or does it just confuse them and make their life miserable because now they have to reject the orange every time they're doing a match and it's just filling up space on a screen? So, that is the difference between a deepening feature and an additional feature. Deepening features make some interaction better and more seamless. Additional features are just tapping another button onto your stupid TV remote, and very often are not useful. Additional features are things like adding all the colors available. Like here, I'll give you an example. No, here's a perfect example. A lot of the Etsy sellers on Teleport will have a product and they will match that product to every single color inside of Teleport. They will have a red rose 3D model and they will match it to purple and gold and pink and blue and orange and all the rest of it. And I just told you, orange, well, it does not sell. So don't do that because you're passing all the options on to your customer and you're giving them so much effort in deciding that, oh, I want a red rose. You have product photos of a red rose. Why would I order orange? That kind of a thing. Make sure that the feature is valuable. Make sure that it actually improves it and is not just another choice. More choices kill customer experience. More choices are not good. This is where many people make the mistake. Many people, especially in the 3D printing world, the development world, believe that choices and options and settings improve the quality of the product. I disagree. There are cases where you want those, and you do want to give people control when it's necessary, when that feature is valuable to a large enough group of people, but generally you don't. But generally, adding more stuff just confuses people. This is the difference between, here's a localized example. A slicer where you drag and drop the file in and say slice and it comes out and it prints fine, versus a thing where you drag in the file and then you change the layer height and then the infill and you twiggle your retraction settings and then you pick pet G and then you rotate it around on the bed. That's all terrible stuff. You have control, but it is a miserable experience. So, creating new features. Do not do surveys. I really hate product surveys of like, what features would you like us to add? Those are terrible because if you do a survey, you're seeding people's ideas. Do you want more colors? Which new colors do you want? They're leading questions. Anybody asked, do you want more? They will say, of course. You've had a steak. Would you like another? Yes. But you're full. Why do you want to keep on eating? Because you gave me another. That's not good for the customer. It's not good for the business. So surveys where you're asking leading questions around new features are really bad. The best sort of surveys are like, where are you having problems? Where are your points of friction? Because number one, people will respond more often. They'll say, yeah, that's a hellhole right there. And number two, those types of surveys actually create something where you can create delight, because people really love your product when they have friction and pain and then it disappears. That shows so much intentionality from the company of listening to people, of taking the feedback and doing something about it. So if looking for new features, ask people what their problems are with your app. Now, a lot of people don't do this because it means admitting that there's something wrong with your app. Instead, many people ask, our app is amazing. How can we make it better? How many more steaks can we bring you? How many more colors can we offer? As opposed to saying, our app is getting long, but I'm sure there's probably something horrible with it. What can we fix? What is terrible right now? That is more useful, immediately solves actual pain for the customers, and gives you better insight as to what people are worried about. Okay, Gabe, where is all the innovation inside of this kind of thing? Innovation is slightly overrated as compared to iteration. When many people think that there's some grand idea of like, we have to get this app to the perfect position and it'll work. And that is true inside of product creation. Once the product is created and you're trying to add new features and expand it and deepen it and improve it, the rules change. It is about iteration. It is about listening to your customer and doing what your customer needs, because your product exists. You've built the light bulb. Now what do people want? Well, they want it to last longer and use less power. Okay, that's what we're going to focus on. We built the light bulb. We're brilliant. Great. Invention. Bing, bing. Now, moving on to actually making it good. Okay. Let's see here. Other notes on this. By the way, guys, a lot of these deep dive topics, I've been doing this. I write a few notes before just to make sure that I'm like hitting the points. But I don't like this version of presentation because it is not concise enough. So a lot of these video essays, which they should be, which are happening as stream of consciousness podcasts, I'm going to distill into actual written essays at some point because they need to be. And by the way, though, in addition to that, very few of these are my original ideas. Sorry, didn't want me to burst the illusion. But if you want to learn about like adding new features and that kind of thing, there's great discussions about this. Product design, listen to Brian Chesky from Airbnb. Excellent guy at product design. Creation of new products. Brian Chesky again, Paul Graham. Excellent at it. If you want to learn about how to create good products, read a couple of books. Emotional design and the design of everyday things. Everybody should read that. I don't care if you're doing software or hardware. The rules are the same. So many of these things have been stated before, and I'm simply restating them in my more verbose and roundabout way. And I'm trying to fill time on a podcast. So it is what it is. But anyhow, the creation of new features. Get good data. Listen to the problem. Don't necessarily listen to the solution offered, because it's your job to know that better. Test, run test, again, collection of data once you have an idea. Ask people what they hate, don't ask what they want. And then, based on what they dislike, yes, no, we got all that. Cool. That's the whole thing. And if you just spent your whole time fixing problems, you'd end up with a really, really good product. So long as you're fixing the problems creatively. Because very often the problems introduce, like somebody whines about, oh, I hate your checkout process or something like that. And then they offer, why don't you just have one click? That they're not asking for one click. They're asking for a better checkout process. This gives you, this gives you an opportunity to innovate. So I'll give you a real world example here. Last week, we were talking about having an instant refund button on Teleport because it reduces administrative load on our side in evaluating if a refund is valid. And quite frankly, refund's always valid because we're very customer centric. If the customer wants a refund, we're going to do it. So want a refund button, an instant refund button where you just hit refund next to the order and then we do it. We reduce administrative load. Customer has a safe space and knows that will never get screwed by us because they literally have control of whether we get paid or not, even after we're paid. And we have a really tight feedback loop of how to improve the product, because if people are refunding it, it's bad. And there's no way for it to go south because we can see somebody abusing it very easily. So that instant refund button was brought about by the fact that Teleport right now doesn't really have a very formal return or refund process. We left that kind of open because we didn't know how to do it. And our expectation, and kind of initially as a print service, we made the part for you. When we put it in the box, it was fine. And now it got run over by a UPS driver. Where do we want our jurisdiction to end? Most print services say, we made and shipped the part. Now it's on you. You got to buy the part from us again. And that's kind of like the historical solution to it. We didn't really like it, so we didn't have it in there. Right now, in order for us to get the feedback, if anybody reports inside of there's a little question icon over on the side, support icon inside of Teleport. You click on that and it opens up a form. And if you say, I want this order refunded, we'll basically send you a refund. But people are saying, oh, the refund process is rough. Well, we could have put in a refund process that would have been traditional like everybody else, which is what everyone was suggesting. Put in a refund process like this guy or like this guy or like this guy. But what we did was we brought our expertise, our knowledge of the domain, our knowledge of the product. Like, we know what we can sustain as a business as far as an operational refund feature. So we're like, what if we just had straight up refunds for everything? Can we afford that? And the answer is yes, we can, because number one, we believe in our work. And if we do good work, there shouldn't be a lot of refunds. Okay, well, what about fraud? Well, fraud is identifiable, so we will have to have creative engineering and background to do fraud identification and prediction, and that's fine. And we can do that, and we have the expertise to do that. Therefore, we can create a refund flow that has never existed before. And we're able to do that because we're also building an application and a service that has never existed before. Most people don't like refunds because they bought the item, shipped it, stored it, and shipped it to you again. So they really don't want to give up the money because that's part of their inventory. And you probably put fingerprints or wore the dress out or whatever it happens to be. But since we're making a single item on demand, you don't have the shipping, you don't have the inventory, you don't have the warehousing. We have the manufacturing and the shipping, but it is less, potentially less, than that whole other old supply chain. So this new form of supply chain enables us to do a really cool refund methodology. So that we have now invented a new refund method and added a feature to Teleport, a feature that simplifies the process, makes everybody happy because we get really tight feedback. People don't have to fill out 20 forms or have to search around through some dark pattern for the refund button. And there's no return shipping because, again, we made it on demand and we're like, well, whatever. It got delivered. People didn't like the print quality or whatever. Order a refund. Order prototypes until you're happy with the prototype and ask refunds for each one of the prototypes, whatever it happens to be. So that is the addition of the feature. We had the product out there. People were using it. People were requesting something to be done around refunds, and there's a lot of suggestions. But we didn't take their requests and immediately go code something up. We looked at it, we percolated on it, and we thought, okay, in the context of the product that we have, how can we do this in an elegant and useful way? And go from there. So, and by the way, this process of what to add applies at every level of the business. So like, should we do Tangled in addition to Teleport? Is Tangled a feature of Teleport, or is it an add-in feature, or is it a deepening feature? At the business level, those business units inside of Slant 3D are deepening features. Tangled is a means by which we can reduce our material supply chain costs, while also continuing to improve and engage with the community. It also has other ancillary benefits around there too, to where we can improve other products via things like Tangled. So this methodology, I think I finally, after talking about it for forever, I think I finally got down to the nugget. The the difference between a deepening feature or addition or just an addition. Additions, just a straight up addition, is generally clunky, an add-on, and not very helpful. But deepening features can be helpful. And literally those are things that generally are somewhat buried to where if you want expert settings, you need to be an expert and know how to go find them or crack them open. They shouldn't be the default setting, that kind of thing. So, and this is also like the thing with just like consumer products in general. Because if you keep on adding features, you end up with the universal TV remote or a toaster that has Wi-Fi or whatever kind of horrible Frankensteinian monstrosity, because you just keep on tacking stuff on because you're paid a salary and your job is to add more stuff, as opposed to really intentional feature design where you make the experience better overall and you push to make whatever, however it currently works, work better in a more seamless way. And a car doesn't drive better because you put more wheels on it. It drives better because the engine burns less gas or the seats are more comfortable or whatever else it was. Very rarely is it the addition of another thing. It is the refinement and understanding of the cohesive whole, so that you create something very concise and very good. This is why most good products start as a convoluted mess and slowly start to narrow down into something smaller and smaller and smaller until they're really good. When you hit product market fit, you're able to do that one thing. And then you exist for a while and you grow that and you scale it as far as you can. And then you can introduce another separate thing. Not necessarily another feature, but another thing. So that's that. Feel like I didn't bring this back to where it's useful for you. In the beginning, once you have a product that is working, refine it. Don't add stuff to it. Refine it. Make it better. Tune the edges. Get rid of the rough edges. Because a lot of people just don't do that. They tack on another thing. But when you refine it and you show that intentionality, it becomes very delightful. And then if you take customer feedback and eliminate the pains that they see with your existing product, then they start to love you more and more, and you get better. And your product gets better. But a better product is not more features. Almost ever. Especially if the current features are not really boiled in. Side note, this is totally different from product creation. Product creation is a giant mess where you slap a bunch of stuff against the wall. We'll talk about that some other time. All right, that's all I got for that, guys. Comment down below if there's other topics around 3D printing design or product design or business that you'd like us to go over on the podcast. I've been on a number of calls and people were saying that they really enjoy this type of content where we talk about the philosophy or the businessy sort of stuff. So I'd like to keep on doing that a little bit more and contextualize them more. Podcast is also formalizing a bit more. So while I was talking a moment ago about how I need to do these as essays, I may start scripting these to the extent that I will write an essay ahead of time and we'll effectively go through that on podcast. So it's just more refined because I think that's a good improvement of podcast and creates more value to you guys. Again, it's a deepening of podcast. It's not adding in another section to podcast. It is taking the section that is already here, the discussion, and pre-planning it a little bit more so that it's more distilled other than just, I'm going to expound on my information here for a moment. And hopefully it's coherent. So that. Have a great day, everybody.